Hi, this is Gabriel from Pressgang. In this video, we'll take a look at entering race results and the options available. So we'll start by selecting the event that we want to enter results for, and we do that in the side panel by clicking on the event card to show its details in the main console area, and then selecting the Results tab. By default, it will go to the Enter Results view. Next, we'll select the fleet in the drop-down. And the first thing you'll notice is the orange highlight area. This is an overview of the current settings for the fleet. In this example, you can see that we have no handicap systems selected and no discards applied. To set these, click on the Fleet Options button to open the dialog window. Because we'll be entering results for a mixed fleet, we need to select a handicap system from the drop-down. And for this example, we'll use Portsmouth Yardstick. Next to the handicap system, there's a checkbox for club overrides. This lets you use your own ratings instead of the standard ones, and I'll show you how to do that a bit later in the video. To add discard rules, click the Add Another Discard button, and by default, the system starts with one discard applied after 5 races have been run, but you can change either of these values to match your sailing instructions. If you add an additional discard, it will automatically increment. And here I'll just change this to 10 races. So what we've got is if it's 4 or less races run, there's no discard. Between 5 and 9 races, 1 discard will be applied. But for 10 or more races, there will be 2 discards. You can add as many as you want, and to remove them, just click the trash icon. The last option in the dialog relates to penalties that use fleet size. Rule A5.2 will count all of the boats in the entire fleet, regardless of how many come to the starting area, whereas if you select Rule A5.3, they will score based on how many boats come to the starting area only, except for DNC, which still uses the full fleet size. When you've adjusted the fleet settings, click the Save button, and the highlighted fleet details will update. Next to the fleet options is the Edit Scorecodes button. By default, Pressgang uses standard penalty code settings, but you can edit them by clicking the orange pencil icon. Or click the Add a New Code button to create your own. One thing to note, any changes or additional codes will only apply to the current fleet. The scoring system drop-down is set to low point by default, but you can also choose the low point 0.75 or bonus point systems. Just above the race entry area, there's a drop-down selector, and you can use this to navigate between different races in case you need to go back and change any results. But because we haven't calculated race 1 yet, there are no options available. The race type is set to a standard race by default, but you can change this to either a practice race, abandoned race, or medal race. Selecting Practice Race will append the letters PR to the race name, and although you can calculate results, they won't be included in overall result tables and they won't show on the Sailor app. An abandoned race is exactly the same. It won't be included in results, but this will have the letters A, B appended to the name. You can always change a practice or an abandoned race back to a regular race at any time, and the overall results will be updated to include it. Selecting Medal Race will double the points applied and will append the letter M to the race name. This can also be changed back to a regular race if needed. The time format lets you choose the type of result data you want to enter, and by default it's set to elapsed time. But if you select position, then the data entry column on the table will change to let you enter the finishing position of each boat. Choosing finished time will let you enter the time the race started, and in the table, the time that each boat finished the race. Elapsed time assumes that you used a stopwatch and can enter the time it took each boat to finish the race. If you have wind information, you can enter the speed and the direction, and don't forget to put in the race officer's name. If you want the race to be non-discardable for all competitors, then you can just check the Race Can't Be Discarded box. You can choose which table columns to show or hide, and if you want to simplify the view for result entry, you can uncheck as many as you want. We'll switch them back on now so that I can show you the additional table options. The config column in the table lets you change a boat's configuration based on its standard options. For example, with the Dart 15 catamaran, we have 4 to choose from. And if you're calculating results with a handicap system applied, When you change the configuration, it will update the rating in the table, as you can see with the dart when we change between Unirig and Sport Solo. Any changes you make to the configuration will be applied to the next race table as well. So earlier I mentioned club handicap overrides, and I'll deviate for a moment to show you how that's done. If we take the Enterprise dinghy as an example, the standard PY rating is 1126, and we'll set a club override for this by going to Settings in the top menu, then clicking the Club Handicaps tab. I'll add the Enterprise class by searching for it, then pressing the Add Boat button. And boats get added to the table with their standard rating shown in black. To set a new rating, click on the default value and type a new rating in. As you can see, the override value will show in orange. Click Save and the new rating is set. Going back to our event, and in the race table you can see that the rating for Enterprise is now using the club override, and any non-standard ratings have an asterisk appended. If you only want to override a rating for one boat, you can do that directly on the table, as I'm showing here with the 29er. And whatever value you change it to will also be used on the next result table, so you only need to do this once. For this race, I don't want the Enterprise to use the club override, so I can go back to the Fleet Options dialog, uncheck Use Club Overrides, hit Save, and now on the table you can see the Enterprise is using the standard rating. Okay, so now we're ready to enter some race times. If you use Pressgang to print the score sheets used on the committee boat, then the table will follow the same order as your recorded times. To enter a time, click anywhere on the first box and the hour will be selected by default. If the time is less than an hour, you can tab to the minutes. As soon as you type 2 digits, the system will tab to the seconds field. To go to the next competitor, press tab or click on the time box. Here I'll make a mistake on purpose and only enter 4 instead of 49 in the minutes section. To apply a penalty code, click on the code drop-down, and here we'll give the boat an OCS penalty. The penalty value shows next to it, and in this case we can see it's fleet size +1. Some penalties, their value can be changed directly on the table. For example, if we select a ZFP penalty for the Wayfarer, we can edit the percentage value that's applied, and we'll just change this from 20 down to 15. One thing to note, any changes made to penalty values here will only apply to the current race. Okay, back to our friend the Enterprise. I'm going to make another mistake here and type a 1 into the hour field. And I'll finish up by entering a time for the National 12. So now we have 2 user errors, a 4-minute race time for the ILCA4 and nearly 2 hours for the Enterprise. If I click on the Calculate Results button, the system will run a number of different checks on the results first. And here it's caught our 2 mistakes and gives us the option to go back and change them. It's also flagging 1 correct result, and that's because our 2 mistakes have skewed the average. So if I go back and correct them, then press the calculate button again, all the data checks are okay, and I can scroll down below the entry table to see the calculated results for this race. If you need to go back and change anything, you can just make the changes on the entry table and recalculate. Here I'll be kind and remove the ZFP penalty from the Wayfarer, and then press recalculate scores. When everything is correct, you can press the next race button to enter results for the following race. And now you can see race 1 is showing in the select race drop-down, and if we want to, we can go back to it any time and edit it. After you've calculated results for the last race, click on the View Results tab, select the fleet, and its results tables will load. To view a competitor's details, click on the down icon at the end of the row, and use the table selector to switch between result tables. The results are set to provisional by default, and you can change them to final by clicking the radio button. As you can see, the color changes so that you can easily tell the status of your results at any time, and this color system is also used on the app. When you're ready, you can publish the results to the Sailor app and your public site by clicking the Publish button. Club members will receive a notification on their phone that results are ready, If they raced at the event, their own result overview will show at the top, and their entry will be highlighted in the result tables. Pressing the down icon for each competitor shows more detailed information, and it's easy to switch between overall and individual race results. Back on the club console, after results have been published, they can now be printed for the notice board. Click the button to open them up in a printer-friendly format, and then go through your regular printing process. And that's it. If there's any additional features or settings that you think we should add, please leave suggestions in the comments section below.